You worked on the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount, and you worked on a particular system that really roots you in that world when you're making a new character. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the Heroic Chronicle is a system that players can use to help create characters that are deeply rooted in the world of Wildemount, in the setting of Wildemount. One thing that I've found as a player when approaching new D&D settings is that I often don't know where to begin. I don't know enough about the world, and I don't want to encyclopedically read through the setting to figure out, okay, what's my place in the world? I just want to jump right in. And sometimes the DM won't even let you look at the setting book because there's so many plot hooks and other things they're going to put into their campaign. So having a bit of that setting that's explicitly focused right at the player and right at the player making characters is really useful. There are subclasses and classes and backgrounds in this book, but those are all mechanical considerations. This is for the player that wants to really roleplay their character deeply, and it does it in a couple of ways. The Heroic Chronicle at its core is a lot of tables with options you can either choose directly or roll randomly on, kind of like the backgrounds that already exist in 5th edition, but turned up to 11. The best thing about it is that no matter what your background is, no matter what your job was, if you were a sailor or a spy or whatever, all of those backgrounds from the player's handbook are in there. But now we get to dive deeper. How many family members did you have? How many people have you met along your travels that have become either allies for you, spread across the world, or who really are out for your blood? What strange mystical happening occurred when you were a child that led you on the path to adventure? Or what's your favorite food? Right? There are 4 main regions in Wildemount, and this is totally for fun, stuff that gives depth to your character without, affecting if I'm a fighter 3rd level with a pirate background. It doesn't matter any of that. But if you come from the Dwendalian Empire, if you come from the Menagerie Coast, from Xhorhas, from the Greying Wildlands, all of those places are made very different by what kind of foods they have, for instance. And so that instantly gives a little bit of grounded realism to your character, insofar as now you have a detail that's really important to you.
And it's a good hook for your DM.
Yeah.
Like the DM can now, okay, you have X amount of family members. Because if you're a dungeon master and you're asking the player, 10 sessions in, so do you have a brother or a sister or something like that? Then that's very leading that they're setting up a plot line that includes your family. This encourages you as a player to give the DM as much to play with as they can on your behalf.
The Heroic Chronicle really wants players to think about their story in the depth that the cast members of Critical Role did when making their characters. One of the big things about Critical Role, why people love it so much, is because these are people who have thought very deeply about their character, a dungeon master who's thought very deeply about the world, and they're people who've worked together really closely to make sure those things mesh together. And I don't think there are a lot of player resources out there that really encourage players to do that. So if you're someone who's never played D&D before, or if you're someone who's only ever played a very dungeon crawly, combat heavy game, and you haven't delved into real Critical Role style role-playing before, this is your opening gambit. This is how you get into that.
What made this important to you when you were designing this for you, when you made characters yourself?
This was really important to me because it lays out the setting in a way that's player-focused and story-first. A lot of setting content and a lot of adventure content is really aimed directly at the dungeon master. And I love being a DM, I love running campaigns, and I love learning about a world, but I often feel like the best campaigns that I've run occur when I give the player characters enough leeway to start telling their own stories and to start making the world their own. And this gives them the ability to do that. It meets them halfway so that a player isn't making everything up whole cloth, so that the DM isn't just dictating straight to them. Suddenly the hands meet, you shake hands, you have a good campaign going. I've heard a lot about players who love to just make characters. Like, making characters is like a whole mini game within D&D.
That's all I do. Like, before I go to sleep at night, is I'm on the iPad and I have nothing but I have
Oh my
characters
gosh.
on my
Well,
D&D
but
Beyond account.
that's single player D&D, right? You don't
Yeah.
need a group, you don't need a dungeon master. You pop open D&D Beyond or you pop open your player's handbook and you just, choose fighter, pirate, and I've got these background traits and this is a character I want to play and what are they going to look like at 20th level? How's that going to happen? That's really fun for a lot of people, myself included, you included,
Yeah.
with 65 characters. And so this is just a deeper way to have that, solo D&D minigame of character
That's a
creation.
very good point, yeah.
Yeah, and except this time it's not all just what feats am I going to take, what's my plan for 20th level. People love planning out where their character is going to go mechanically. There are 3 parts to the Heroic Chronicle because it's, the Heroic Chronicle, it's as if someone is telling your character's story, right? You roleplay hard in the game, and then when you're done with the game, you come back out and you're thinking, okay, where is my character going from here, right? And so there's the beginning of the character that I've talked about a lot, where it's backstory, family, sort of nitty-gritty details. Where did you come from? What's your hometown? And then, once you're in the game a little bit, there's also a section of the Heroic Chronicle called the Prophecy. And this is an optional rule, right? Not every campaign is going to have it. But one thing that Matthew Mercer does really well as a DM is that he works with his players to figure out where their stories can go. I won't say any Critical Role spoilers here, but every single one of those characters has a starting point, and I'm sure they've talked with each other about what some possible ending points, what some stops along the road are going to be. So this prophecy section that comes into play later on in the game is, at the beginning, you note down a couple of things that you want your character to do, like totally removed as a player, what do you want your character to do story-wise in the game? And you will give this to your DM, and it all feeds back into that stuff you created earlier. And your DM will look at it, and they'll work with you back and forth. Right? The best D&D games happen when you meet halfway. And so they look over that, they work back and forth, massage the details so that they work for both you and the DM. And then every time these story-driven sort of checkpoints come up, these little road signs appear in the campaign, it's a big character moment. It's basically you telling the DM, I want to have this big character moment. The DM says, all right, I will make sure that a moment very much like this happens in the game. And then it happens, something changes both from a totally non-mechanical roleplay standpoint, everything moves in a different direction, and also you get a little bonus gameplay-wise too. It might be inspiration, it might be you have an extra d4 on your attack rolls for the next day or something like that. And it, ideally when people are making this prophecy, it ties into what they're doing, right? So if you have I want to be a great pirate fighter, I'm going with this example, and I have a rival pirate captain on the seas of the Lucidian Ocean, and their defeat, or even better, they defeat me sometime in the campaign, and it changes who I am completely. So that moment happens, you fight, and obviously the dice will have a role to play. Maybe you will end up defeating them, and suddenly that's a different moment entirely. But let's say the prophecy comes true, they beat you, you fall to the ground, they taunt you, they leave you alive, maybe they throw you onto an island like Jack Sparrow, and then your character is changed as a person, but also you're filled with that determination to fight harder, better, stronger than before, and so you've got an extra little bonus to your attack rolls for the next little while as you train hard, Rocky style, to become someone who can beat this villain of yours.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So this is the hope, right? The Heroic Chronicle lets you roleplay hard in the game, making choices entirely based on what your character will do, just like the Critical Role folks do. And then once the game is over, once you pull back out, you can think like a storyteller, like a director, like a bard, yeah, like a chronicler. Yeah. You can think, okay, where will this story we're telling go to next? And that's the goal of the Heroic Chronicle, to make stories that work great in the moment and become truly epic tales on the large scale.